Barry, in trying to understand consciousness, the concept of self-awareness seems so important. The process of ourself understanding ourselves being aware of things, a second order awareness. How does that work?
Well, that seems to be one of the distinctive facts about human conscious life. Sometimes we're conscious, but sometimes we have the special subjective feel of being consciously aware, the kind of moment-to-moment thrill of actually experiencing it. And I think when we talk about self-awareness, which is what we value, what we care about, makes us distinctively the human subjects we are, we're talking about something that has many different levels. So self-awareness can be enjoyed when I'm sitting at the shore, looking at the sea, looking at some rocks. And now I start to feel a pleasure that I'm having these experiences. And that's a kind of self-awareness. But if I reflect too much on that and think, oh, I'm having these pleasurable experiences, I'll sort of dissipate them. They'll go away. I'll interfere. So when you become self-conscious, this can actually interrupt that primitive level of self-awareness. But many of the moments in our life when we're driving, when we're doing something rather automatically, we're awake and we say we're aware, but we're not self-aware. We're not concentrating on ourselves. So there are levels, there are ways in which we intervene to catch hold of ourselves, and sometimes too readily, as when we're self-conscious.
When I try to improve my ping pong skills, and I take ping pong very seriously, if I haven't played in a long time and I'm not worried about it, and I can play wonderfully, then the next day I say, wow, I'm really playing well. I think about it, it falls apart because I have the extra level of thinking about doing it interferes with the process of doing it.
That's right. And you know, when you're running down the stairs quickly, you set your feet in motion and off you go.
Yeah.
But of course, if you look at your feet and attend to them, you'll fall.
Right.
So that's right. You can interrupt and interfere with ordinary, rather automatic processes. But something else we're learning is that so-called self-awareness can also aggrandize itself and claim to be involved in things it's not really doing. So some of these rather routine and automatic skills would happen anyway, but we think we're in charge of them. We think we're in control. We think we're actually doing it.
What's an example of that?
Well, a nice example, some nice work by Funare and Jeanneret, is where somebody is asked with a stylus to draw circles, and they're not looking at their own hand, but they're seeing on a computer screen the size of the circle they're drawing. Now, what the computer screen can do is gradually increase the size of the circle, and the person, without knowing, will start increasing the circle they're drawing. But they feel they're controlling what's coming out of there. So many of the things we do, such as, you know, running down the stairs and putting your feet into motion, the reason that you don't want to get involved in that is because you're not really in control. A lot of it can be pushed off and contracted out to some sub-personal system, some part of you that is not the conscious personal mind. So I think self-awareness can take a rather over-involved interest in what we're doing when it's not really all of us involved. And at the same time, it's got these layers, it's got these stratifications that we just talked about.
Can you actually find that in the brain where different parts of the brain are responsible for these different layers?
Well, you can find out how much of the brain it takes to reach rather high levels of conscious attention and monitoring. So attention is one of those interesting things, because when we pay attention to something, that seems to be when we're most aware. And yet there's two kinds of attention. There's bottom-up attention, where something grabs our attention. If I snap my fingers, your eye turns. It captures your attention. But there are other cases where you turn your attention deliberately. You're the one actually directing the traffic. So I think you can see different areas of the brain involved in the amount of activity it takes to become very aware and to devote resources to awareness of certain things. Here's an interesting case where I think we're rather less aware of what's going on. Take dreaming. So when you dream, there's something that happens that Chris Frith, the neuroscientist, points out, namely that a lot of weird things go on, but in the dream you don't seem to mind. You know, you're indoors, you're outdoors, you're a man, you're a woman, you're watching yourself, you are yourself, people are turning into trees and so on. And in the dream, that doesn't matter. You seem to just take it in your stride. Now, why is that? And he thinks it's because when we go to sleep, a lot of the frontal cortex starts to shut down.
Discriminating.
Yeah, and when you're doing less monitoring, less structuring of your experience, you're probably having something which he says is analogous to being brain damaged. It's the closest thing we get to knowing what it's like to be brain damaged. Namely, you're working with what you've got there, and you're not aware of how strange the world is.
So what does that mean about self-conscious? Is this something uniquely human? Is it something that comes out of a larger brain?
I think there is something important about self-consciousness, because one of the distinctive things about the human animal is that it's a creature with a mind that knows it has a mind. And maybe we're unique in having that. In other words, there's something more elevated than self-awareness, which is self-knowledge, a way in which we understand ourselves or know ourselves. And that knowledge that we are creatures with minds, I think that's unique and distinctive. The other unique and distinctive thing about us is that we have language, and there may be a relation between these two.